So today, back working on the race car, got it up in the air. Obviously I quit playing with the motors for now because that was just having bad luck. So what we're gonna do today is change these bad boys out. I bought something a little nicer. As you can see, factory rubbers are getting old and rotten. I've done what I can. It's time for an upgrade. So what we're gonna do is change to these bad boys. These originally came with rubber bushings as well. I ordered in the extra knuckles here that come with Delrin bushings, so it is going to move like this easy, this smooth all the time on the track too. So big reason for doing that is the rubber binds up and doesn't want to move freely like this, which limits and slows your suspension travel down. So if you're trying to get the weight transfer to the back, you want it to move nice and smooth. Ordered different ball joints too. Ball joints for these, half-inch longer than the factory ones would be, so it'd give us a better camber arc for when the front end goes in the air and comes back down. Just going to be a nice smoother arc and all that kind of stuff. And then fully adjustable front, back. Get rid of factory ones have shims that go in there. Get rid of those. Bolt these solid, and then all my adjustment is right here. There and there. You can dial it in extremely close to where you want it, which is nice. The other way, you're fighting with it all the time and trying to get it kind of, just a little bit here, a little bit there, you give up. And then, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Alright, so we're gonna start taking it apart, and what I've done, I'll go to this side. First thing you do is, if we can get the zoom to work here, there we go, get that sun out of there. Take the cotter pin out of the lower ball joint, or up the upper ball joint here, and then we're gonna remove the nut, and then there's a taper fit, just like that. It's nice and tapered on the steering knuckle and the ball joint. So what that does is press together really tight when you tighten that up. So then what you do is, there's two ways to do this. If you want to save the ball joint, you can take a hammer and smack it on the side right here on the knuckle. The vibration sometimes takes a couple smacks, will knock it loose. If you don't care about the ball joint, there's a special pickle fork tool that will go in here. It's about that wide, and you can smash that and it'll put pressure between the two and pop it apart. But generally it will wreck the boot when you do that. So depending on which way you want to go, there's a couple different options for you. I find this funny. 1980 Trans Am, still original ball joints in this thing. How many vehicles these days can last that long? Original ball joints in a 1980. This thing has been rode hard, put away wet. As long as you kept them greased, they wouldn't wear out. Apparently manufacturers thought that was a problem. So but yeah, anyways, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pop that apart, and then up here I will take these two nuts off, one on either side there. The control arm comes off. It's that easy. When you're doing this kind of stuff, make sure you either keep the shock in. If you have the shock removed, you're gonna have to brace underneath the lower control arm, because if not, everything would want to shoot down. So right now the shock will stop it from wanting to do that, and the steering knuckle and the brakes can just dangle. Just pivot on the lower ball joint and we'll take that one off. Alright, so I'm going to get doing that, and I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, so we got the first upper control arm off. So what I did to get this all the way off is I loosened these off a little bit just so I could get the control arm to move on the shaft, because the factory original bolts were so long that I wasn't going to get them out this way, so I had to turn the control arm up and then break these free and pull them out the back. As you can see, there's supposed to be a spline nut. They're mostly just held on by rust. So this is what I'm doing with the new ones. So new bolts, Nylocks, so they're not going to come loose, and I'm putting the Nylock on the body side, just so the exhaust can't melt them. So it's going to look a lot cleaner rather than having a huge amount of stud sticking way out here close to the header. It'll just be small, simple, and clean. So I'm going to bolt these up and then tighten everything else up. I also just have to read the instructions real quick, make sure I got this control arm pointed in the right direction, because it gives you instructions on that. So I'm going to read that and tell you if I guessed right or not, and then we'll go from there. So as far as it goes, I did get this one in right. So the welded part here is supposed to point towards the front of the vehicle. That's the way it's pointing. The long one is supposed to be on the front side. So that's how we got it. So that's how it's going to work. So that's pretty basic and easy. I just got to tighten some things up now, grease some things. So I got to tighten these, tighten all this up, just get a quick ballpark. We'll be doing a full alignment on this thing before I go racing it all. I even still have the ball joint loose. So yeah, we'll tighten all that up, and then we can move on to the next project once I have all this put back together. Alright, so some things to look out for when you're doing this. One, when you're doing anything with these 3 bolts have to get loosened in order to adjust the alignment, because they're obviously going to pivot. Here, one thing I'm noticing, I'll have to double check all clearances and stuff after I fully align it, but right now at this moment I'm actually touching there. So if that happens when I'm sitting on the ground and this thing is at ride height, that's not going to happen. But what I'm worried about is when I launch the car and it comes to full suspension lift and smacking there hard, it could bend something or wreck something. So after I align it, what we may have to do is just put this on a different angle. So what we're going to do is probably just cut from here, straight line up to where it's got a little bend there. It's got a little bend there. We'll just take that piece out and just cut straight line, smooth it into there nicely, and that'll give us a fair amount of clearance. So when all the suspension work's done and all that kind of stuff, and then yeah, we do an alignment, and then I'll hang the front suspension and see if we come close to that. So that's the thoughts for now, but we'll have to see what I have to do when we get to that point. So just something to keep in mind. So I got a few things more to tighten up here. I've tightened up these ones, I've tightened up these ones. So then what I'm going to do is tighten up these ones all right now, and then when I get it on the ground, I'm going to tighten all these to make sure they're not going to move. I still got to tighten those ones too. And then yeah, after that, you can grease everything up, and yeah, one more side to do, and then we're all done. Alright, so we got everything together, everything bolted up nice and tight, everything greased. You can't tell from this angle because I've wiped all the grease and everything off, because that's how I went during tech inspection and stuff. Well, a little bit more there I gotta get right there, see? You don't want globs of grease like that falling on the track, so just if you grease things, let them sit for a little bit so that the most is going to ooze out, and then wipe everything clean. That way, like I said, no globs of goop on the track, because that would be dangerous. Somebody gets a tire on that. So there we go. Upper control arms installed. The only thing that's not tight is these, because I will lower it down on the ground, and then we will take a look at that. Alright, so we're also changing the front wheels. We are going from these that we had on there to these. These ones are a lot lighter. They're a bias ply, actual Mickey Thompson front runner. And the difference is, these you can adjust your rollout by adjusting air pressure more. The more air you put in them, the more the tire will stretch and the larger rollout you'll have. So if you're just barely tickling the red lights, it's throw a few more pounds of air in them and try it again, and it might clean you up a little bit. So yeah, they're also quite a bit lighter than what these ones are. The radials and the cast wheels, these look nice, and they are for sale. I have one guy that wanted first option on them, so if he doesn't say he wants them, then anybody else is willing to get them. But yeah, these ones, forged racing wheels from Weld. They are really nice. They are very lightweight. They should help with the front weight transfer, making the car lighter, all that kind of good stuff. We'll see if we can get the wheels, front tires off a little higher this year than last year. Not much though. Like I said, last year, you don't want to be lifting the tires 3 feet in the air. All that's doing is wasting momentum. If you can get them between 1 inch and 6 inches off the ground, that's perfect. So we're going to bolt these up. We're going to put it down on the ground, and we will take a look at how everything looks. Do just an eyeball alignment for tonight and tighten up those upper control arms. So there we go. The front end looks a lot more race car-ish. See, from this angle, we have a lot of suspension travel. That's a good thing. You need it, especially with the little bit. This is classified as a heavy car for drag racing, weighing in probably close to 3,000 pounds at the moment. So we got all the suspension travel we should need. Everything moves really nice and easy, which is good. And there we go. Now we just got to lock down the jam nuts for now. We will do an alignment once I have all the suspension work done, and then this thing will run true as true could be. All right, we'll talk to you guys next time.